Welcome to today's episode of Ancient Mysteries Monuments that changed the world. Picture this. You're standing before a massive stone pillar, towering 18 feet above your head and weighing as much as 50 tons. Around you, dozens of similar monoliths are arranged in perfect circles, their surfaces carved with intricate images of wild animals, lions, foxes, serpents, and birds of prey. The craftsmanship is breathtaking, the engineering mind-boggling. But here is what will completely blow your mind. This isn't some medieval cathedral or Roman temple. This monument was built over 11,000 years ago, before the invention of pottery, before the wheel, before agriculture itself. You're looking at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, quite possibly the world's first temple. But it's just one piece of a much larger puzzle that is forcing us to completely rewrite the story of human civilization. From the mysterious megalithic temples of Malta that predate the pyramids by over 1,000 years, to the massive stone circles of Britain that required moving 40-ton blocks across hundreds of miles. Our ancestors were achieving the impossible long before we thought they had the technology, organization, or motivation to do so. For centuries, we believed that monumental architecture only emerged after humans developed agriculture, formed complex societies, and created surplus wealth. We thought you needed kings and pharaohs, armies of workers, and sophisticated tools to build on a massive scale. But as we're about to discover, this story is completely backwards. It wasn't civilization that enabled monument building. It was monument building that created civilization. Today, we're going to uncover the shocking truth about humanity as first architects and the massive monuments that changed the world forever. Chapter 1. The Dawn of the Impossible. 11,000 years ago, when most of humanity was still living as hunter-gatherers, scraping out a subsistence existence in small nomadic bands, something extraordinary happened on a rocky hilltop in southeastern Turkey. A group of people who had never built anything larger than temporary shelters suddenly embarked on the most ambitious construction project in human history up to that point. They quarried massive limestone pillars, some weighing as much as 50 tons, transported them across rough terrain, and erected them in elaborate circular arrangements decorated with sophisticated animal carvings. The site they created, now known as Göbekli Tepe, challenges everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. For decades, archaeologists have operated under a simple assumption. First came agriculture, then permanent settlements, then social stratification, then religion, and finally, monumental architecture. It was a neat, logical progression that made perfect sense. Surplus food production freed up labor for specialized tasks. Permanent settlements allowed for the accumulation of wealth and materials. Social hierarchies provided the organization needed for large projects, and established religions gave people the motivation to build temples and monuments. But Göbekli Tepe turns this entire sequence on its head. Here we have monumental architecture built by people who were still hunting and gathering, who had not yet invented pottery or domesticated animals, who lived in a world without permanent settlements or centralized governments. The implications are staggering. Either we've been completely wrong about the capabilities of prehistoric peoples, or we need to fundamentally revise our understanding of how civilization develops. The German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who led the excavations at Göbekli Tepe until his death in 2014, was convinced that the site represented nothing less than a revolutionary moment in human history. Standing among the massive T-shaped pillars with their intricate carvings of scorpions, snakes, foxes, and wild boar, Schmidt declared that this was the first human-built holy place, a cathedral on a hill constructed by people who were supposedly incapable of such achievements. The numbers alone are mind-boggling. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed at least 20 large circular enclosures buried beneath the hilltop, with the excavated structures representing less than 5% of the total site. Each enclosure required the quarrying, transport, and erection of multiple massive stone pillars, some reaching heights of 18 feet and weights of 50 tons. Conservative estimates suggest that moving just one pillar would have required 500 people working for 3 days, and this for a single stone among hundreds. The scale becomes even more impressive when we consider the entire construction timeline. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built in a single massive effort, but evolved over more than 1,500 years, with successive generations adding new enclosures, refining existing structures, and developing increasingly sophisticated carving techniques. This represents cultural continuity and institutional memory spanning 60 generations of builders. A remarkable achievement for a supposedly primitive society. But it's not just the scale that's impressive, it's the sophistication. Recent analysis has revealed that the builders of Göbekli Tepe employed advanced geometric principles in their construction. The 3 main excavated enclosures are positioned according to an equilateral triangle, with precision that could only have been achieved through careful planning and measurement. The T-shaped pillars aren't random monuments, but carefully designed, architectural elements that serve both structural and symbolic functions. The quarrying techniques alone demonstrate remarkable engineering knowledge. The limestone pillars were carved from bedrock outcrops using controlled percussion techniques that created smooth, precisely shaped surfaces. Tool marks on the stones show evidence of systematic stoneworking methods that maximized efficiency while minimizing material waste. The builders understood how limestone fractures under stress and developed techniques for exploiting natural weak points in the rock to create desired shapes. Transportation of these massive stones across the rough terrain of the Anatolian Plateau required engineering solutions that wouldn't look out of place on a modern construction site. Archaeological evidence suggests the use of wooden rollers, earthen ramps, and possibly primitive pulley systems that could move multi-ton blocks across miles of uneven ground. The precision with which these blocks were positioned in their final locations suggests surveying and alignment techniques of remarkable accuracy. The animal carvings that cover many of the pillars represent another level of sophistication entirely. These aren't crude stick figures or simple outlines, but detailed, 3-dimensional reliefs that demonstrate advanced artistic skills and deep knowledge of animal anatomy and behavior. Lions stride across the stone surfaces with rippling muscles, serpents coil with threatening grace, and birds of prey spread their wings in displays of power and dominance. The artistic quality rivals that of much later civilizations and demonstrates aesthetic sensibilities that challenge our assumptions about prehistoric cultural development. Perhaps most intriguingly, many of the pillars appear to be anthropomorphic, representing stylized human figures. They have tie-shaped heads that suggest human forms, arms carved in relief along their sides, and some even wear belts, jewelry, and clothing depicted in stone. These aren't just abstract monuments, but representations of specific individuals, deities, or social roles, suggesting that the builders had developed complex religious or social hierarchies that we can barely imagine. The symbolism embedded in these carvings reveals sophisticated conceptual thinking that extends far beyond immediate survival concerns. The animals depicted aren't random choices, but appear to represent specific symbolic systems related to power, danger, and supernatural forces. The predominance of predators and venomous creatures suggests belief systems focused on danger, protection, and the relationship between humans and the natural world's most threatening aspects. Recent discoveries have revealed that the builders of Göbekli Tepe possessed sophisticated astronomical knowledge that rivaled that of much later civilizations. Several of the stone circles are aligned with specific stars and constellations that would have been prominent in the prehistoric sky. The precision of these alignments suggests systematic observation of celestial phenomena over extended periods and mathematical calculations that could predict stellar positions across seasons and years. The mystery deepens when we consider what happened to Göbekli Tepe. After being used for more than 1,500 years, the site was deliberately buried under tons of earth and rubble sometime around 8000 BCE. This wasn't natural abandonment or gradual decay. It was an intentional act of closure, as if the builders decided to seal away their greatest achievement for reasons we can only speculate about. The burial was so thorough and systematic that the site remained completely hidden until modern archaeological techniques revealed its existence. This pattern of deliberate burial appears at other early monumental sites as well, suggesting that it wasn't a unique event but part of a broader cultural phenomenon. Were these early builders trying to preserve their monuments for future generations? Were they responding to some religious imperative that required closing sacred sites after specific periods of use? Or had their society undergone such dramatic changes that the old monuments no longer served their purpose? Recent discoveries have revealed that Göbekli Tepe wasn't alone in its remarkable achievements. Across southeastern Turkey, archaeologists are uncovering a network of similar sites featuring T-shaped pillars and circular enclosures. Places like Karahan Tepe, Hamzan Tepe, and Navali Kori are revealing a prehistoric culture of monument builders that spanned hundreds of miles and persisted for thousands of years. This wasn't a single isolated achievement, but evidence of an entire civilization devoted to monumental construction. The broader implications are profound. If hunter-gatherer societies were capable of organizing and executing projects on this scale, then our entire understanding of prehistoric social organization needs to be reconsidered. These monuments required not just physical labor, but sophisticated planning, specialized skills, long-term vision, and the ability to coordinate the efforts of hundreds or perhaps thousands of people across extended periods of time. Archaeological evidence from the site reveals the complexity of the social systems that supported construction. Vast quantities of animal bones found at Göbekli Tepe show evidence of large-scale feasting that brought together people from across the region. The variety of species represented, gazelle, aurochs, wild boar, and birds, suggests hunting expeditions that ranged across hundreds of miles and required sophisticated coordination and resource sharing. Some researchers now suggest that it was the need to support these massive construction projects that drove the development of agriculture in the region. Rather than agriculture enabling monumental architecture, monuments may have created the demand for reliable food production that led to the domestication of crops and the development of settled communities. It's a complete inversion of the traditional narrative, and it has profound implications for how we understand the relationship between technology, society, and human achievement. The discovery of the world's oldest domesticated wheat varieties, just a few miles from Göbekli Tepe, lends credence to this revolutionary theory. Perhaps the need to feed large numbers of workers and pilgrims gathering at these sacred sites drove local populations to begin cultivating wild grains, leading to the agricultural revolution that would transform human civilization. As we stand at the beginning of our journey through humanity's first monumental achievements, Göbekli Tepe serves as a powerful reminder that our ancestors were far more capable, organized, and visionary than we have ever imagined. The massive stones that rise from the Turkish hillside aren't just archaeological artifacts. They are evidence of humanity's first great leap forward, the moment when we transition from simply surviving in the world to actively reshaping it according to our own grand designs. Chapter 2: Masters of the Megalith. While Göbekli Tepe was stunning the world with its ancient sophistication, another extraordinary monument-building civilization was taking shape on a small Mediterranean archipelago. The islands of Malta and Gozo, today known for their beaches and medieval fortifications, were home to some of the most advanced prehistoric architects the world has ever seen. Between 3600 and 2500 BCE, these island builders created temple complexes that remain among the oldest freestanding stone structures on Earth, predating Stonehenge by over 1,000 years, and the Great Pyramid by 500 years. The story of Malta's temple builders begins with one of archaeology's most remarkable discoveries: evidence that sophisticated monument construction could emerge in the most unlikely places. These small islands, with a combined area smaller than many modern cities, supported a prehistoric civilization that achieved architectural feats rivaling those of much larger and more complex societies. The achievement becomes even more remarkable when we consider the limitations these island builders faced. The Maltese temple builders faced challenges that would daunt modern engineers. Working with nothing but stone tools, wooden rollers, and human muscle power, they quarried massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 20 tons, and arranged them into complex architectural masterpieces that demonstrate an understanding of engineering principles that wasn't supposed to exist for millennia to come. Yet here they stand, defying both time and our expectations about prehistoric capabilities. The islands themselves presented unique challenges and opportunities for monument construction. Malta's geology consists primarily of globigerina limestone, a relatively soft stone that could be worked with primitive tools, but was also vulnerable to weathering and erosion. The temple builders learned to exploit the properties of this stone, using its workability for detailed carving, while developing construction techniques that protected finished surfaces from environmental damage. The temple complex at Kagantija on the island of Gozo provides perhaps the most stunning example of their achievements. The name itself means giant's tower in the local language, and local legends insist that only giants could have moved stones of such enormous size. When you stand before the main temple's facade, with its massive orthostats, upright stone slabs rising nearly 20 feet into the air, it's easy to understand why ancient peoples attributed superhuman abilities to the builders. The construction techniques employed at Kagantija demonstrate remarkable engineering sophistication. The builders used a technique called ashlar masonry, fitting irregularly shaped stones together so precisely that no mortar was needed to maintain structural stability. This technique requires understanding of load distribution, stress patterns, and structural engineering principles that weren't formally codified until modern times. But the Maltese temples aren't impressive merely because of their size. They represent a level of architectural sophistication that challenges our assumptions about Neolithic societies. The builders employed advanced construction techniques, including corbelled roofing, where successive courses of stone project inward until they meet at the top. This technique requires precise calculations of weight distribution and structural loads, the kind of engineering knowledge that archaeologists once thought didn't develop until much later periods. The precision of Maltese temple construction becomes even more remarkable when you consider the tools available to the builders. Stone spheres found at several sites suggest that the massive blocks were moved by rolling them on these spherical stones, an ingenious solution to the problem of transportation that predates the invention of the wheel by thousands of years. The builders also developed sophisticated lifting techniques using wooden levers and ramps that allowed them to position multi-ton blocks with extraordinary accuracy. The internal organization of Maltese temples reveals sophisticated understanding of architectural principles that create both functional and symbolic spaces. The temples typically follow a trefoil or cloverleaf plan, with central corridors leading to semicircular chambers or apses. This design creates a sequence of increasingly sacred spaces that guide visitors through carefully choreographed spiritual experiences. The proportions of these spaces follow mathematical relationships that create pleasing acoustics and visual harmony. At Hagar Kim and Nashdra, two temple complexes perched on Malta's southern cliffs, the builders demonstrated not just engineering prowess, but astronomical knowledge that rivals that of later civilizations. The entrance to the Nashdra South Temple aligns perfectly with the sunrise during the spring and autumn equinoxes. while other openings framed the sun during the summer and winter solstices. This wasn't accidental. It required careful observation of celestial cycles and mathematical calculations to achieve such precision. The astronomical alignments at Najera are accurate to within minutes of arc, demonstrating observational capabilities and mathematical knowledge that challenge our understanding of prehistoric societies. Achieving this precision required not only years of careful observation, but also sophisticated methods for transferring astronomical calculations into architectural reality. The builders had to account for factors like atmospheric refraction, the changing position of sunrise throughout the year, and the precise relationship between celestial and terrestrial coordinates. The interiors of these temples reveal another dimension of Maltese sophistication: their artistic abilities. The walls are covered with intricate spiral reliefs, animal carvings, and abstract patterns that demonstrate not just technical skill, but a developed aesthetic sense. At Tocharian, archaeologists uncovered carved reliefs showing processions of animals, including cattle, pigs, and goats, evidence that these island people had developed complex relationships with domesticated animals thousands of years earlier than previously thought. The artistic program at Maltese temples extends beyond mere decoration to encompass sophisticated symbolic systems that may have encoded religious beliefs, historical information, or astronomical knowledge. The spiral motifs that appear throughout the temples follow mathematical patterns that create visual rhythms and spatial relationships of remarkable complexity. These patterns may have served as mnemonic devices that help preserve important cultural information across generations. Perhaps most intriguingly, the temples contain numerous representations of what appear to be female figures, large, curvaceous forms that some interpret as fertility goddesses or representations of the Earth Mother. These sculptures, including the famous fat lady figures found at various sites, suggest that Maltese society may have been organized around goddess worship, or at least held women in particularly high regard. The implications for our understanding of prehistoric social organization are significant. Here was a sophisticated society that may have developed along very different lines from the male-dominated hierarchies that characterize most later civilizations. The scale and consistency of female imagery across multiple temple sites suggests that these weren't isolated artistic choices, but elements of a coherent religious or ideological system that influenced temple construction across the islands. The figures are depicted with remarkable consistency in style and proportion, indicating shared artistic traditions and possibly formal training systems for sculptors and carvers. The mystery of Maltese temple construction deepens when we consider the logistics involved. The islands have no sources of metal ore, so all work was done with stone tools manufactured from local flint and imported obsidian. There are no large rivers to aid in transportation, and the limestone blocks had to be moved across rough, hilly terrain that would challenge modern heavy equipment. Yet somehow, the builders managed to construct more than 30 temple complexes across the islands, each representing a massive investment of time, labor, and resources. Archaeological evidence suggests that the temple builders maintained extensive trade networks across the Mediterranean that brought exotic materials and ideas to the islands. Obsidian from Italian volcanoes, shells from distant shores, and other exotic materials found at temple sites indicate that these supposedly primitive islanders were engaged in sophisticated economic exchanges with peoples across the region. This challenges yet another assumption about prehistoric societies, that they were isolated and technologically backward. The social organization required for temple construction must have been extraordinary. Unlike Egypt, where pharaohs could command vast armies of workers, or Mesopotamia, where city-states could mobilize large populations, Malta's prehistoric population was probably never more than a few thousand people scattered across the islands. Yet they managed to coordinate construction projects that would have challenged much larger societies. This suggests a level of social cooperation and shared purpose that is remarkable for any period of human history. The construction timeline of Maltese temples reveals sophisticated project management, capabilities that enabled multi-generational building programs. Individual temple complexes show evidence of construction phases spanning centuries, with later builders expanding and modifying earlier structures while maintaining architectural consistency and design integrity. This required institutional mechanisms for preserving and transmitting construction knowledge across dozens of generations. The decoration and layout of Maltese temples also reveals sophisticated ritual practices that may have influenced temple design and construction. Many contain stone altars, offering tables, and carefully designed acoustic properties that would have enhanced ceremonial activities. The temple at Kam Kim contains a chamber with holes that frame specific stars at certain times of year, creating a celestial calendar that could have been used to time religious festivals or agricultural activities. Recent acoustic analysis of Maltese temples has revealed that many were designed with sophisticated sound engineering that enhanced their ceremonial functions. The stone chambers create resonance effects that amplify certain frequencies while dampening others, creating acoustic environments that would have enhanced chanting, music, or spoken rituals. This acoustic engineering demonstrates another dimension of architectural planning that required understanding of sound propagation principles. But perhaps the most mysterious aspect of Maltese temple culture is its sudden disappearance. Around 2500 BCE, after more than 1,000 years of continuous development and elaboration, temple construction simply stopped. The sophisticated architectural knowledge vanished. The artistic traditions ended, and the island's population seems to have declined dramatically. What caused this collapse remains one of archaeology's great mysteries. Some theories suggest climate change, as the Mediterranean region experienced significant environmental shifts during this period that may have made the islands less suitable for supporting large populations. Others propose invasion by Bronze Age peoples with superior military technology who displaced or absorbed the temple builders. Still others suggest internal social collapse caused by resource depletion or ideological changes that made monument construction no longer relevant to island society. The mystery deepens with evidence that some temples were deliberately preserved before abandonment. At several sites, archaeologists have found evidence that temple chambers were carefully sealed and protected before being abandoned, as if the builders wanted to preserve their monuments even as their civilization was ending. What we do know is that the Maltese temple builders achieved something extraordinary that continues to influence our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities. Working with the most basic tools and limited resources on small Mediterranean islands, they created architectural masterpieces that have survived for over 5,000 years. Their achievements remind us that sophistication and civilization can emerge in the most unlikely places and times, and that our ancestors were capable of far more than we have traditionally given them credit for. The survival of these temples through more than 5,000 years is itself remarkable. Built to last using construction techniques that distributed weight effectively and choosing materials carefully, they have weathered millennia of storms, earthquakes, and human activities. Today, as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, they continue to challenge our understanding of prehistoric capabilities and inspire new theories about the origins of architectural achievement. Chapter 3. The Stone Circles of Power. As the sun rises over Salisbury, southern England, its first rays illuminate one of humanity's most enigmatic achievements, Stonehenge. The massive trilithons, pairs of upright stones topped by horizontal lintels, stand like silent sentinels against the dawn sky, their purpose and meaning as mysterious today as they were to medieval travelers who first wondered at their presence on the windswept plain. But Stonehenge, impressive as it is, represents just one example of a monument building phenomenon that swept across prehistoric Europe like a spiritual epidemic. From the stone circles of Scotland's Orkney Islands to the megalithic rows of Brittany, from the passage tombs of Ireland to the dolmens of Denmark, ancient Europeans embarked on a construction frenzy that produced over 35,000 megalithic monuments across the continent. The scale of this achievement becomes apparent when you consider what it took to build Stonehenge itself. The massive sarsen stones that form the outer circle each weighed between 25 and 45 tons and were quarried from sites nearly 20 miles away. These enormous blocks had to be shaped using only stone hammers and wooden tools, a process that required remarkable skill and patience. The precision achieved in shaping these stones rivals that of much later civilizations with access to metal tools and sophisticated machinery. The smaller bluestones, weighing 2 to 5 tons each, present an even greater mystery. These distinctive rocks were transported an astounding 150 miles from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey that would have required incredible organization and determination from people who were supposedly living in small, scattered tribal groups. The selection of these specific stones was not random but demonstrates sophisticated understanding of their acoustic properties and symbolic significance. Recent experimental archaeology has provided insights into just how difficult these achievements were. In 2001, researchers attempted to recreate the journey of the bluestones using period-appropriate technology. They managed to move a 3-ton stone over land using wooden rollers and ropes, but the process required 130 people and moved at a pace of just 1 mile per day. When they attempted to transport the stone by sea on a replica prehistoric vessel, it sank in calm waters before even reaching the open ocean. The successful transport of 82 bluestones across land and sea represents an organizational feat that rivals any achievement in human history. The quarrying and shaping of Stonehenge as massive sarsen stones reveals sophisticated stoneworking techniques that challenge our assumptions about prehistoric capabilities. Recent analysis has shown that the builders used controlled fracturing techniques to split large blocks from natural outcrops, then employed systematic percussion methods to shape them into precise architectural forms. The surfaces of these stones show evidence of sophisticated finishing techniques that created smooth, precisely angled faces using only stone tools. The construction of Stonehenge wasn't a single project, but a series of elaborate phases spanning over 1,500 years, from about 3,100 to 1600 BCE. The earliest phase involved creating a circular, earthwork enclosure with 56 pits around its perimeter, the mysterious Aubrey holes, whose purpose remains unclear but may have served astronomical or ceremonial functions. Phase 2 saw the erection of the first stones, including some of the transported bluestones arranged in complex patterns that demonstrate sophisticated planning and design capabilities. The final phase created the monument we see today, with its iconic trilithons and heelstone arranged in precise astronomical alignments that demonstrate remarkable mathematical and observational skills. The careful positioning of these massive stones required surveying techniques that could maintain accuracy across the entire site while accommodating the irregular shapes and sizes of individual blocks. This extended construction timeline reveals something profound about the societies that built Stonehenge. They were capable of maintaining architectural traditions and construction projects across dozens of generations. This required not just technical knowledge, but sophisticated cultural mechanisms for preserving and transmitting complex information over centuries. The builders developed what amounted to a prehistoric architectural school that could maintain design standards and construction techniques across periods longer than most modern nation-states have existed. The precision of Stonehenge's astronomical alignments provides another window into the sophisticated knowledge of its builders. The monument's S-axis aligns perfectly with the sunrise on the summer solstice and the sunset on the winter solstice, creating dramatic lighting effects that would have enhanced its ceremonial significance. Other stones frame the rising and setting positions of the moon at its maximum monthly excursions, demonstrating understanding of complex lunar cycles that require years of careful observation to master. These alignments aren't approximate. They're precise to within fractions of degrees, demonstrating mathematical and observational capabilities that we once thought didn't exist in prehistoric Europe. Achieving this precision required not only systematic observation of celestial phenomena, but also sophisticated methods for translating astronomical calculations into architectural reality on the ground. But Stonehenge is just the most famous example of a much broader phenomenon that transformed the prehistoric European landscape. Across the British Isles, archaeologists have identified over 1,000 stone circles, each representing a significant investment of labor and resources by prehistoric communities. The diversity of these monuments reveals sophisticated regional traditions and cultural variations that challenge simple models of prehistoric social organization. The Orkney Islands alone contain over 100 megalithic monuments, including the spectacular Ring of Brodgar with its 60 massive standing stones, arranged in a perfect circle 340 feet in diameter. The engineering required to create this monument rivals that of Stonehenge, yet it was built in a remote island environment with even more challenging logistical constraints. The diversity of these monuments reveals sophisticated regional traditions and cultural variations that demonstrate the complexity of prehistoric European society. The stone circles of Scotland often incorporate complex internal features like central hearths or elaborate entrance passages that suggest specialized ceremonial functions. The Welsh circles frequently include astronomical alignments with specific stars or lunar positions that demonstrate advanced observational capabilities. The Irish passage tombs combine massive stone construction with intricate artistic decorations that rank among the finest prehistoric art in Europe. Perhaps most remarkable of all is Newgrange in Ireland, a passage tomb that predates Stonehenge by 500 years and demonstrates astronomical precision that rivals any ancient monument. Built around 3200 BCE, Newgrange features a 62-foot-long passage that leads to a central chamber topped by a corbelled dome rising 20 feet above the floor. The engineering required to construct this dome without mortar or metal fastenings demonstrates sophisticated understanding of structural principles and material science. Once a year, at dawn on the winter solstice, sunlight penetrates through a precisely positioned roof box above the entrance and illuminates the chamber's back wall for exactly 17 minutes. This phenomenon requires astronomical precision that demonstrates systematic observation of solar cycles and mathematical calculations that could predict the exact timing and angle of winter solstice sunrise. The construction of Newgrange required moving over 200,000 tons of stone and earth, including massive blocks weighing up to 10 tons each. The corbelled roof, constructed without mortar or metal tools, has remained watertight for over 5,000 years, a testament to the engineering skills of its builders. The monument's exterior was originally covered with brilliant white quartz stones that would have made it visible from miles away, creating a beacon that dominated the ancient landscape. The artistic achievements of the megalithic builders match their engineering prowess and reveal sophisticated symbolic systems that may have encoded important cultural information. The stones at Newgrange are covered with elaborate spiral and geometric carvings that represent some of the finest abstract art created anywhere in the ancient world. These aren't simple decorations, but complex symbolic systems that may have encoded astronomical, religious, or historical information in visual form. The consistency of artistic motifs across megalithic sites, separated by hundreds of miles, suggests shared cultural traditions and possibly formal systems for training artists and craftsmen. The mathematical relationships embedded in these artistic patterns demonstrate understanding of geometric principles that create both visual harmony and symbolic meaning. The social implications of megalithic construction are staggering when we consider the organizational capabilities required. Building monuments like Stonehenge or Newgrange required coordinating the efforts of thousands of people over extended periods. Workers had to be fed, housed, and organized. Specialized craftsmen had to be trained and maintained. Raw materials had to be procured from distant sources. All of this suggests social organizations of remarkable sophistication, operating in prehistoric Europe. Archaeological evidence from megalithic sites reveals the extent of this organization and its sophisticated nature. At Dorrington Walls, a massive timber circle near Stonehenge, archaeologists have found evidence of feasting on a scale that suggests thousands of people gathering for seasonal celebrations. Animal bones show that cattle and pigs were brought from across Britain to feed these gatherings, demonstrating logistical capabilities that rival those of modern events management. The logistics of organizing such events, coordinating food supplies, managing crowds, maintaining order, required administrative capabilities that we once thought didn't develop until the Bronze Age. Evidence suggests that these gatherings involved not just local communities, but people traveling from across Britain and even continental Europe, creating prehistoric festivals that brought together diverse populations for shared ceremonial activities. The megalithic phenomenon also reveals extensive trade and communication networks across prehistoric Europe that enabled the sharing of knowledge, techniques, and materials across vast distances. Similar construction techniques, artistic styles, and even specific measurements appear at sites separated by thousands of miles. The standard unit of measurement used at Stonehenge, the megalithic yard, of 2.72 feet, appears at stone circles across Britain and even in Brittany, suggesting shared knowledge systems that span the continent. Recent research has revealed that many megalithic sites were acoustically engineered to enhance sound during ceremonies, demonstrating another dimension of sophisticated planning that went into these monuments. The stones at Stonehenge create echoes and resonances that would have amplified drumming, chanting, or music. Some circles include sound reflector stones positioned to bounce sound waves in specific directions, creating acoustic effects that would have enhanced the ceremonial experience for participants. This acoustic engineering represents another dimension of prehistoric knowledge that challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities. Understanding how sound waves interact with stone structures requires principles of physics that weren't formally described until modern times. Yet megalithic builders intuitively understood and applied these principles to create powerful auditory experiences. The decline of megalithic construction around 2000 BCE coincides with the arrival of Bronze Age technologies and social systems in Europe, marking a fundamental transition in European prehistory. The egalitarian societies that built the great stone circles gave way to more hierarchical cultures, dominated by metal-wielding elites. The age of collective monument building ended, replaced by individual burial mounds and prestigious grave goods. That marked the emergence of social inequality and centralized political authority. But the legacy of the megalithic builders lives on in the monuments they left behind, and in the enduring human fascination with their achievements. These structures continue to inspire and mystify us, serving as tangible links to prehistoric societies that achieved the impossible with stone, sweat, and an indomitable human spirit that transformed the landscape of an entire continent. Domesticated wheat varieties, just a few miles from Göbekli Tepe, lends credence to this revolutionary theory. Perhaps the need to feed large numbers of workers and pilgrims gathering at these sacred sites drove local populations to begin cultivating wild grains, leading to the agricultural revolution that would transform human civilization. As we stand at the beginning of our journey through humanity's first monumental achievements, Göbekli Tepe serves as a powerful reminder that our ancestors were far more capable, organized, and visionary than we have ever imagined. The massive stones that rise from the Turkish hillside aren't just archaeological artifacts. They re-evidence of humanity's first great leap forward. The moment when we transition from simply surviving in the world to actively reshaping it according to our own grand designs. Chapter 4. The Pyramid Revolution. In the desert sands of Egypt, something unprecedented began to take shape around 2630 BCE. The pharaoh Djoser, third ruler of Egypt's third dynasty, commissioned his architect Imhotep to create a tomb unlike anything the world had ever seen. Instead of the traditional mud brick mastaba, a low rectangular structure that had served Egyptian royalty for centuries, Imhotep designed something revolutionary. A step pyramid that rose in 6 massive tiers to a height of 204 feet, dominating the landscape at Saqqara like an artificial mountain. The step pyramid of Djoser represents far more than just an impressive tomb. It marks the moment when human ambition transcended all previous limits. For the first time in history, people had constructed a building taller than any natural feature in their landscape, creating a monument that could be seen from dozens of miles away. But more importantly, Djoser's pyramid launched a construction revolution that would produce some of the most impressive architectural achievements in human history and establish Egypt as the ancient world's most ambitious monument-building civilization. The transition from mastaba to pyramid wasn't just an architectural evolution. It represented a fundamental shift in how humans conceived of their relationship with the divine and their capacity to create lasting monuments to human achievement. The vertical emphasis of pyramid design created powerful symbolic connections between earth and sky, mortality and immortality, human achievement and divine power. This wasn't just bigger building. It was an entirely new form of architectural expression that would influence monument construction across the globe. What makes the Egyptian pyramid achievement so remarkable isn't just their size, though that is certainly impressive enough. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for the pharaoh Khufu around 2580 BCE, contains over 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing between 2.5 and 15 tons. The largest granite blocks in the King's Chamber weigh over 80 tons and were transported 580 miles from quarries at Aswan. The pyramid originally rose to 481 feet, making it the tallest human-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years, a record that wasn't broken until the completion of the Lincoln Cathedral in England in 1311 CE. The sheer volume of material incorporated into Egyptian pyramids staggers the imagination. The Great Pyramid alone contains approximately 6.5 million tons of stone, enough material to build a wall 6 feet high and 1 foot thick around the entire circumference of France. The pyramid complex at Giza contains over 9 million tons of stone, representing one of the largest construction projects ever undertaken by human civilization. But it is the precision of pyramid construction that truly boggles the mind and demonstrates capabilities that challenge our understanding of ancient engineering knowledge. The base of the Great Pyramid is leveled to within just 2.1 centimeters, an accuracy that would be impressive even with modern surveying equipment. The pyramid's sides are straight to within 1.5 centimeters over their entire 230-meter length. The pyramid's orientation aligns with true north to within 3/60th of a degree, demonstrating astronomical observation capabilities of extraordinary sophistication. The internal passages and chambers are engineered with tolerances measured in millimeters, creating spaces that have remained perfectly stable for over 4,500 years, despite the enormous weight pressing down on them. The Grand Gallery, rising at a precise 26-degree angle through the heart of the pyramid, demonstrates mastery of complex three-dimensional geometry that requires sophisticated mathematical understanding. The king's chamber incorporates granite blocks fitted together so precisely that a knife blade cannot be inserted between the joints. The logistics of pyramid construction reveal organizational capabilities that rival modern mega-projects and demonstrate administrative sophistication that challenges our assumptions about ancient governmental systems. Recent analysis suggests that building the Great Pyramid required a workforce of approximately 20,000 people working for 20 years. This wasn't just unskilled labor. Pyramid construction required specialized teams of quarrymen, stonemasons, transporters, engineers, surveyors, architects, and countless other specialists working in careful coordination. Archaeological evidence from pyramid construction sites reveals the sophistication of Egyptian project management systems that enabled these massive undertakings. At Giza, archaeologists have uncovered extensive workers' villages complete with dormitories, mess halls, bakeries, breweries, and even hospitals for treating construction injuries. These installations could house and feed thousands of workers while maintaining the health and morale necessary for sustained construction efforts over decades. Papyrus documents from pyramid construction projects provide detailed records of work gangs, supply deliveries, and construction schedules that demonstrate administrative systems of remarkable efficiency and sophistication. These records show that construction crews were organized into gangs with colorful names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, each consisting of 2,000 workers divided into smaller units of 200 men. Each gang had specialized roles, some focused on quarrying, others on transport, still others on construction, creating division of labor that maximized efficiency while maintaining quality standards. The transportation challenges alone were staggering and required engineering innovations that demonstrate remarkable problem-solving capabilities. The limestone blocks for most pyramids were quarried locally, but the fine white limestone used for exterior casing came from Tura, across the Nile River. The granite for interior chambers had to be brought from Aswan, 500 miles to the south. Moving these materials required fleets of specially designed barges, elaborate harbor facilities, and carefully constructed roads and ramps that could handle massive loads. Recent discoveries have revealed the ingenious methods Egyptian engineers developed for moving massive stones that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of mechanical principles and hydraulic engineering. At several quarry sites, archaeologists have found evidence of artificial harbors and canals that brought boats directly to the quarry face, eliminating the need for overland transport of the heaviest blocks. Ramp systems carved into rock faces show how blocks were moved from quarry levels to boat loading areas using combinations of ramps, levers, and precisely calculated mechanical advantages. The Wadi al-Jarf papyri, discovered in 2013, provide unprecedented insights into pyramid construction logistics. These 4,600-year-old documents describe the transportation of limestone blocks from Tura quarries to the Giza pyramid complex, detailing the boats, crews, and scheduling involved in supplying construction materials. The papyri reveal a sophisticated supply chain management system that coordinated resources across hundreds of miles and multiple work sites. The construction techniques used in pyramid building demonstrate engineering knowledge that wasn't supposed to exist in the Bronze Age, and reveal understanding of principles that weren't formally codified until much later periods. The builders understood principles of structural engineering, weight distribution, and material science that allowed them to create stable structures of unprecedented size. The internal architecture of pyramids includes elaborate systems of relieving chambers that distribute the massive weight of the superstructure, preventing collapse while creating perfectly proportioned interior spaces. The precision fitting of massive granite blocks in pyramid interiors demonstrates mastery of stoneworking techniques that rival modern capabilities. These blocks were shaped and positioned with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, achieving fits so precise that the joints remain virtually invisible after 4,500 years. The techniques for achieving this precision with bronze tools and stone implements represent lost knowledge that modern engineers struggle to replicate. Egyptian pyramid builders also developed sophisticated astronomical knowledge that allowed them to incorporate celestial alignments into their monuments with extraordinary precision. The Pyramid of Khufu contains narrow shafts that point directly toward specific stars that were important in Egyptian religious beliefs about the afterlife. The northern shaft points toward the pole star as it appeared in ancient times, while the southern shaft targets Orion, which the Egyptians associated with their god Osiris. The layout of the Giza complex mirrors the arrangement of stars in the constellation Orion, demonstrating understanding of both terrestrial surveying and celestial coordinates. These alignments weren't casual approximations, but required precise mathematical calculations and careful construction techniques to achieve. The builders had to account for the precession of the equinoxes, atmospheric refraction, and the exact positioning of monuments relative to both terrestrial and celestial coordinate systems. The artistic achievements of pyramid construction rival their engineering feats and reveal sophisticated understanding of symbolic systems, religious beliefs, and aesthetic principles. The walls of later pyramids are covered with pyramid texts, elaborate religious inscriptions that represent some of the oldest written literature in the world. These texts provide detailed descriptions of Egyptian religious beliefs and funerary practices, offering insights into the spiritual motivations that drove pyramid construction and the complex theological systems that justified these massive investments. The social implications of pyramid construction are profound and reveal governmental capabilities and social organization that enabled unprecedented mobilization of human resources. Building these monuments required mobilizing and organizing a significant percentage of Egypt's entire population. Workers had to be recruited from across the kingdom, trained in specialized skills, and maintained for years or decades. The administrative systems developed to manage these projects laid the foundations for the complex bureaucratic state that characterized Egyptian civilization for over 3,000 years. Recent archaeological discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of how pyramid construction was organized and managed, revealing that these projects involved sophisticated systems of worker management, supply chain logistics, and quality control. At Giza, excavations in the workers' village have revealed that pyramid builders were well-fed, skilled craftsmen rather than slaves working under brutal conditions. Their diet included meat, fish, and bread of high quality, and they received medical care for work-related injuries that demonstrates concern for worker welfare. Graffiti left by construction gangs reveals a sense of pride and competition among different work teams, suggesting that pyramid building was viewed as prestigious and important work rather than forced labor. Team names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure suggest camaraderie and group identity that motivated workers to achieve high standards of craftsmanship and productivity. The pyramid construction industry also drove technological innovation across Egyptian society in ways that influenced development far beyond monument building. The need to move massive blocks led to improvements in boat design, road construction, and mechanical engineering. The precision required for pyramid construction advanced mathematical and surveying techniques. The administrative challenges of large-scale construction projects contributed to the development of writing systems, record-keeping, and bureaucratic organization that supported Egyptian civilization for millennia. The economic impact of pyramid construction was enormous and created demand that stimulated economic development throughout Egyptian society. These projects required not just human labor, but vast quantities of materials, limestone, granite, mortar, copper tools, rope, food, and countless other supplies. The pyramid industry created supply chains that extended across the ancient world, and contributed to economic growth that supported Egypt's emergence as a major Mediterranean power. But pyramid construction wasn't limited to Egypt, and the influence of Egyptian pyramid building spread to other civilizations that developed their own traditions of monumental pyramid architecture. Across the ancient world, civilizations from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica developed their own versions of monumental pyramid architecture that demonstrated the universal appeal of these symbolic mountains reaching toward the heavens. In Mesopotamia, the ziggurats of Sumer and Babylon created artificial mountains that dominated city landscapes and served as focal points for religious and social organization. In Mesoamerica, civilizations from the Olmecs to the Aztecs built pyramid complexes that rivaled those of Egypt in size and sophistication while developing distinctly American architectural traditions. Even in distant China, emperors constructed pyramid-shaped tomb mounds that required massive investments of labor and resources while serving similar functions of royal legitimation and religious symbolism. The influence of pyramid construction extended far beyond architecture to establish new relationships between rulers and subjects, creating physical symbols of power that could be seen across entire kingdoms. They contributed to the development of professional priest classes responsible for maintaining elaborate mortuary cults. They stimulated advances in mathematics, astronomy, and engineering that benefited entire civilizations while creating architectural traditions that influenced monument building across the globe. Perhaps most importantly, pyramids represented a new level of human ambition and capability that demonstrated humanity's potential for achievement to transcend immediate practical concerns. For the first time in history, people were constructing monuments, not just for practical purposes, but as statements about human achievement and divine connection. These weren't just tombs or temples. They were declarations that human ingenuity could create wonders that rivaled the works of the gods themselves and establish precedents for monumental thinking that have continued to inspire architectural achievement today. Chapter 5. Secrets of the Monument Makers. Behind every massive stone monument lies a question that has puzzled archaeologists for centuries. How did ancient peoples, working with the most basic tools, accomplish feats of construction that challenge even modern engineering capabilities? The answer lies not in lost technologies or extraterrestrial assistance, but in human ingenuity, sophisticated knowledge systems, and social organization that was far more advanced than we have traditionally recognized. The tools available to ancient monument builders were deceptively simple, but remarkably effective when used by skilled craftsmen who understood their capabilities. Stone hammers weighing up to 60 pounds could fracture granite through repeated percussion, creating controlled breaks that allowed precise shaping of massive blocks. Copper and bronze chisels, when properly tempered and maintained, could carve intricate details in the hardest stones. Wooden levers, when used with the proper fulcrum points, could move multi-ton blocks with surprising ease. Archaeological evidence from ancient quarries reveals the sophisticated techniques developed by prehistoric stonemasons. At the unfinished obelisk site in Aswan, Egypt, researchers have found direct evidence of how Egyptian craftsmen carved massive granite monuments. They used controlled thermal shock, rapidly heating stone with fires and then cooling it with water, to create fractures that could be exploited with copper tools. Narrow channels were carved along fracture lines and filled with wooden wedges that were then soaked with water, causing them to expand and split the stone along predetermined lines. The precision achievable with these ancient techniques is remarkable. At Göbekli Tepe, T-shaped pillars show evidence of sophisticated carving techniques that created perfectly smooth surfaces and intricate, three-dimensional reliefs. The animals carved on these pillars demonstrate knowledge of anatomy and artistic principles that rival classical Greek sculpture, yet they were created 7,000 years before the Parthenon. Transportation of massive stones presented even greater challenges than quarrying. leading to innovations that demonstrate remarkable problem-solving abilities. The discovery of stone spheres at Maltese temple sites provides direct evidence of how prehistoric builders moved multi-ton blocks without wheels. These spherical stones, ranging from 6 inches to 3 feet in diameter, served as prehistoric ball bearings that allowed massive blocks to be rolled across rough terrain with relatively modest effort. Experimental archaeology has confirmed the effectiveness of these ancient transport methods. In the 1990s, a team of researchers successfully moved a 25-ton block using only stone sphere rollers and human power. A crew of 60 people was able to move the block at a rate of 600 feet per day across level ground, fast enough to transport the largest stones used at Stonehenge from their quarries to the construction site in just 2 months of steady work. Water transport provided another solution for moving massive stones across long distances. The Egyptians developed sophisticated river barges capable of carrying blocks weighing over 300 tons. Papyrus documents describe royal barges over 200 feet long built specifically for transporting obelisks and architectural elements. Harbor installations at pyramid sites include massive stone quays and carefully engineered canals that brought boats directly to construction areas. The lifting techniques developed by ancient builders demonstrate understanding of mechanical principles that weren't formally described until much later periods. Archaeological evidence from various sites shows the use of ramps, levers, and primitive pulley systems that could raise multi-ton blocks to extraordinary heights. At the Pyramid of Meidum in Egypt, archaeologists have found remains of mud brick ramps that spiral around the monument's exterior, providing access for construction crews working on the upper levels. Recent computer modeling has revealed the sophistication of these lifting systems. Engineers analyzing the construction of the Great Pyramid have determined that the massive granite blocks in the King's Chamber, some weighing over 80 tons, could have been lifted using a system of levers and counterweights operating from interior chambers. This technique would have allowed relatively small crews to position the heaviest blocks with precision measured in millimeters. The organizational systems required for monument construction represent perhaps the most remarkable achievement of ancient builders. Managing projects that involved thousands of workers over periods of decades required administrative capabilities that rivaled those of modern corporations. Evidence from pyramid construction sites reveals sophisticated systems for worker management, supply chain logistics, and quality control. Papyrus documents from the Pyramid of Khufu provide insights into ancient project management systems. These records show that construction crews were organized into gangs with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, each consisting of 2,000 workers divided into smaller units of 200 men. Each gang had specialized roles, some focused on quarrying, others on transport, still others on construction. This division of labor allowed for efficient workflow and maintained quality standards across the entire project. The precision achieved in ancient monument construction reveals sophisticated measurement and surveying systems that demonstrate advanced mathematical knowledge. Egyptian pyramid builders developed even more sophisticated measurement systems. The Great Pyramid incorporates the mathematical constant, pi in its proportions. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height equals pi to several decimal places. This wasn't accidental, but demonstrates mathematical knowledge that we once thought didn't develop until classical Greek civilization. Ancient builders also developed remarkable understanding of astronomy that allowed them to incorporate celestial alignments into their monuments with extraordinary precision. The temple complex at Najera in Malta includes alignments with the sun's position during equinoxes and solstices that are accurate to within minutes of arc. Achieving this precision required decades of careful observation and mathematical calculation. The acoustic properties of ancient monuments reveal another dimension of sophisticated planning. Recent studies have shown that stone circles were often designed to enhance sound during ceremonies. The arrangement of stones at sites like Stonehenge creates acoustic effects that amplify sound in specific directions while deadening echoes that might interfere with speech or music. This acoustic engineering required understanding of sound wave behavior that wasn't formally studied until modern times. The preservation techniques developed by ancient builders demonstrate remarkable understanding of material science and environmental factors. The corbel domes at sites like Newgrange have remained watertight for over 5,000 years without any mortar or sealant. The builders achieved this by carefully selecting stones with specific shapes and surface textures, then fitting them together so precisely that water cannot penetrate the joints. Perhaps most remarkably, ancient monument builders developed systems for preserving and transmitting complex technical knowledge across generations without written records. The consistent architectural standards maintained at megalithic sites across Europe over periods of 1,000 years or more indicate sophisticated teaching and learning systems that could preserve precise technical specifications through purely oral transmission. Archaeological evidence suggests that monument building sites served as prehistoric technical schools where specialized knowledge was passed from master craftsmen to apprentices. Tool marks on stones show clear evidence of different skill levels working on the same projects, with expert craftsmen teaching techniques to less experienced workers. This system of knowledge transmission was so effective that construction techniques remained remarkably consistent across centuries of building activity. The social implications of these technical achievements are profound. Monument construction required not just skilled individuals, but entire communities committed to supporting large-scale projects over extended periods. The organization needed to coordinate these efforts suggests social systems far more sophisticated than the simple tribal structures traditionally attributed to prehistoric peoples. Recent research has revealed that monument building drove technological innovation across entire societies. The need to move massive stones led to advances in transportation technology. The requirements for precision construction stimulated developments in mathematics and surveying. The organizational challenges of large projects contributed to advances in record-keeping, communication systems, and administrative management. The monument builders also developed sophisticated understanding of geology and material science that allowed them to select the best stones for specific purposes. Different types of rock were chosen for different architectural elements based on their structural properties, appearance, and durability. This knowledge was so advanced that many ancient monuments have survived intact, while more recent structures built without this understanding have crumbled into ruins. The legacy of ancient monument building techniques extends far beyond the monuments themselves. Many fundamental principles of construction engineering, project management, and architectural design can be traced back to innovations developed by prehistoric builders. The organizational systems created to manage these projects laid foundations for the complex administrative states that characterize human civilization. Understanding how ancient peoples achieved these remarkable feats reveals that human intelligence, creativity, and determination have remained constant throughout history. The monument builders of prehistory possessed the same problem-solving abilities, technical innovation, and organizational capabilities that characterize human achievement in any era. They simply applied these abilities to challenges that seemed impossible, but proved to be merely difficult for people willing to dedicate themselves to seemingly impossible goals. Chapter 6: Civilizations Lost in Time. Across the ancient world, powerful civilizations rose to create monuments that defied every limitation of their time, only to vanish so completely that their very existence remained unknown until modern archaeological discoveries. These lost monument builders achieved feats that challenge our understanding of prehistoric capabilities, then disappeared from history so thoroughly that their monuments stood for millennia without anyone knowing who had built them or why. The civilization that constructed the megalithic temples of Malta represents one of the most mysterious disappearances in human history. For over 1,000 years, from approximately 3,600 to 2,500 BCE, these island builders created increasingly sophisticated temple complexes that demonstrate advanced engineering, astronomical knowledge, and artistic capabilities. Their society supported specialized craftsmen, organized large-scale construction projects, and maintained extensive trade networks across the Mediterranean. Then, around 2500 BCE, it all simply stopped. Temple construction ceased abruptly. The sophisticated artistic traditions ended, and the population appears to have declined dramatically. The islands were eventually repopulated by Bronze Age peoples who built their settlements directly over the abandoned temples, apparently having no knowledge of who had created the massive stone structures they were living among. Archaeological evidence provides tantalizing clues about what might have happened to the temple builders. Analysis of pollen and sediment cores suggests that Malta experienced significant climate change around the time of the civilization's collapse. The islands became more arid, and evidence of agricultural activity decreases dramatically in the archaeological record. Some researchers suggest that environmental degradation may have made the islands unable to support the population levels needed for large-scale monument construction. Others point to evidence of possible invasion or cultural replacement. The Bronze Age peoples who repopulated Malta brought different technologies, artistic styles, and burial practices that show no continuity with the temple building culture. This suggests that the original inhabitants may have been displaced or absorbed by incoming populations rather than simply declining due to environmental factors. The mystery deepens when we consider the deliberate efforts made to preserve some temple sites. At several locations, archaeologists have found evidence that temples were carefully buried under layers of soil and rubble before being abandoned. This wasn't natural deterioration but intentional preservation, as if the builders wanted to protect their monuments for future generations, even as their civilization was coming to an end. Similar patterns of mysterious disappearance appear at monument building sites across the ancient world. The Poverty Point culture of Louisiana created massive earthwork complexes between 1700 and 1100 BCE that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of geometry, astronomy, and engineering. The main site covers over 400 acres and includes artificial mounds arranged in precise, geometric patterns that required moving millions of cubic feet of earth. The Poverty Point builders created these monuments without agriculture, pottery, or permanent settlements. Much like the earlier builders of Göbekli Tepe, they developed sophisticated trade networks that brought exotic materials from across North America, and their earthworks incorporate astronomical alignments that demonstrate advanced observational capabilities. Then, around 1100 BCE, the entire culture simply disappeared, leaving behind their monuments but no clear descendants or explanation for their vanishing. In South America, the Carol civilization of Peru constructed massive pyramid complexes and sophisticated urban centers between 3500 and 1800 BCE, making them contemporary with early Egyptian pyramid builders. The city of Carol covers over 150 acres and includes 6 large pyramid platforms, residential areas, and an elaborate amphitheater that could accommodate hundreds of people. The engineering required to construct these monuments in a desert environment without wheels, beasts of burden, or metal tools represents an extraordinary achievement. Like other vanished monument builders, the Carol people developed sophisticated technologies and social organizations that enabled remarkable achievements. They created elaborate textile arts, developed complex irrigation systems, and established trade networks that extended across the Andes and into the Amazon basin. Yet around 1800 BCE, their cities were abandoned and their civilization vanished so completely that their existence was unrecognized until archaeological discoveries in the 1990s. The pattern of sophisticated monument building followed by mysterious disappearance raises profound questions about the stability and sustainability of early complex societies. These civilizations achieved remarkable things. They developed advanced technologies, created elaborate social organizations, and built monuments that have lasted for millennia. Yet they proved vulnerable to forces that could destroy them so completely that even memory of their existence was lost. Climate change appears to be a common factor in many of these disappearances. The end of the Maltese temple-building civilization corresponds with evidence of increasing aridity in the Mediterranean. The collapse of several monument-building cultures in North America coincides with significant climate shifts that affected food production and population distribution. The abandonment of Caral and other early Peruvian centers may be linked to changes in ocean currents and rainfall patterns that disrupted their agricultural systems. But climate change alone cannot explain these disappearances. Many civilizations have survived significant environmental challenges by adapting their technologies and social organizations. The monument builders seem to have been particularly vulnerable to disruption, perhaps because their elaborate construction projects required such intensive resource investment that they left little margin for adaptation to changing conditions. Some researchers suggest that the very success of these monument-building cultures may have contributed to their downfall. The massive investments required for construction projects may have depleted resources needed for other essential activities. The social organizations needed to coordinate large-scale construction may have become so rigid and specialized that they could not adapt to changing circumstances. The religious or ideological motivations that drove monument construction may also have made these societies vulnerable. If monument building was central to their worldview and social organization, then disruptions that made construction impossible might have led to complete social collapse rather than adaptation to new circumstances. Recent archaeological discoveries continue to reveal the extent of these lost civilizations. Ground-penetrating radar surveys at sites like Göbekli Tepe have shown that the visible monuments represent only a small fraction of what was actually built. Satellite imagery is revealing previously unknown monument complexes across the globe, suggesting that sophisticated prehistoric civilizations were far more widespread than previously recognized. The DNA evidence is also providing new insights into the fate of vanished monument builders. Genetic studies of modern populations in areas where monument-building civilizations disappeared show complex patterns of population replacement and mixing that suggest various scenarios: invasion, migration, intermarriage, or gradual cultural assimilation rather than simple disappearance. Perhaps most intriguingly, some evidence suggests that knowledge and technologies developed by these vanished civilizations may have survived their political and social collapse. Astronomical knowledge, construction techniques, and artistic traditions that appear in later civilizations sometimes show continuities that suggest hidden connections to earlier monument builders. The story of vanished monument-building civilizations serves as a reminder of both human achievement and human fragility. These societies accomplish things that seem impossible given their technological limitations, demonstrating capabilities that continue to amaze us today. Yet they also remind us that even the most impressive civilizations can vanish completely, leaving only their monuments as testimony to their former existence. Understanding these lost civilizations requires us to think differently about prehistoric human societies. Rather than viewing them as primitive peoples struggling to survive, we must recognize them as sophisticated cultures capable of remarkable achievements. Their monuments stand as proof that human intelligence, creativity, and organizational ability have remained constant throughout history, even when the specific knowledge and skills of particular civilizations have been lost to time. The mystery of these vanished monument builders continues to inspire archaeological research and public fascination. Each new discovery adds pieces to the puzzle of how these remarkable societies developed, flourished, and ultimately disappeared. Their story is ultimately our story, a testament to both the remarkable things humans can achieve and the responsibility we bear to preserve and build upon the achievements of those who came before us. Chapter 7. The Engineering of Ancient Peru. High in the Peruvian Andes, at an elevation where the thin air makes even walking difficult for modern visitors, ancient engineers accomplished what seems impossible even today. They carved massive stone blocks from solid granite, transported them across impossible terrain, and fitted them together with such precision that a knife blade cannot be inserted between the joints. The result was structures so well built that they have survived centuries of earthquakes that destroyed later Spanish colonial buildings constructed on top of them. The fortress of Sacsayhuaman, overlooking the former Inca capital of Cusco, demonstrates engineering capabilities that continue to baffle modern architects and engineers. The largest stones in its zigzag walls weigh over 300 tons, equivalent to about 500 modern automobiles. These massive blocks were quarried from sites several miles away, transported across rugged mountain terrain, lifted to heights of over 60 feet, and fitted together so precisely that the walls have remained stable for over 500 years despite numerous major earthquakes. The precision of Inca stonework achieves tolerances that would be difficult to match with modern tools. The joints between massive blocks are so tight and uniform that they appear to have been cut with laser precision rather than bronze and stone tools. The surfaces of these blocks aren't simply flat. They incorporate complex curves and angles that allow perfect fitting between stones of completely different shapes and sizes. This represents a level of three-dimensional geometric calculation that requires sophisticated mathematical understanding. But the Incas weren't the first civilization in Peru to achieve remarkable feats of stone construction. The culture that built the ceremonial center of Tiwanaku near Lake Titicaca was creating massive stone monuments over 1,000 years before the Inca Empire emerged. At an altitude of over 12,000 feet, where the thin atmosphere makes physical labor extremely difficult, Tiwanaku builders constructed pyramid complexes and elaborate courtyards using stone blocks weighing up to 130 tons. The Acapana Pyramid at Tiwanaku demonstrates sophisticated understanding of hydroengineering that rivals modern capabilities. The structure incorporates an elaborate system of drainage channels, water collection areas, and filtration systems that managed water flow through the monument during seasonal floods. Recent research has revealed that the entire pyramid functioned as a massive water management system that could control and redirect the flow of seasonal runoff from the surrounding mountains. The precision of Tiwanaku construction extends beyond individual buildings to site planning and layout. The entire ceremonial complex is aligned with astronomical events and incorporates mathematical relationships that demonstrate advanced knowledge of geometry and celestial mechanics. The famous Gateway of the Sun, carved from a single block of andesite weighing over 10 tons, includes calendrical information that shows understanding of complex astronomical cycles. Even earlier monument builders in Peru achieved remarkable feats that demonstrate sophisticated engineering capabilities. The Chavin culture, flourishing between 900 and 200 BCE, constructed the ceremonial center of Chavindahuanar in a location that required overcoming extraordinary engineering challenges. Built in an active seismic zone where earthquakes are frequent and severe, the complex has survived for over 2,000 years through the use of innovative construction techniques. The builders of Chavindahuanar developed sophisticated anti-seismic construction methods that allowed their buildings to flex during earthquakes without collapsing. They used a technique called ashlar masonry that employed precisely cut stones of different sizes fitted together in patterns that distribute stress evenly throughout the structure. Drainage systems incorporated into the foundations prevent water accumulation that could destabilize the buildings during seismic events. Perhaps most remarkably, the Shaven builders incorporated sophisticated acoustic engineering into their monuments. The old temple at Chavan de Huantar includes internal galleries and chambers designed to create specific sound effects during ceremonial activities. Water channels running beneath the temple create a constant low rumbling that can be heard throughout the structure. Shell trumpets played in certain chambers create echoing effects that can be heard throughout the complex, allowing priests to create impressive audio experiences for visitors. The transport of massive stones to these high-altitude construction sites represents one of the most challenging logistical achievements in ancient engineering. Recent experimental archaeology has provided insights into how Andean peoples might have accomplished these feats. Researchers have demonstrated that large stones can be moved up steep mountain slopes using combinations of ramps, levers, and rope systems operated by relatively small teams of workers. The key innovation appears to have been the development of sophisticated rope technology using locally available materials. Andean peoples developed techniques for creating extremely strong ropes from plant fibers that could support massive loads. These ropes were used in combination with wooden levers and stone fulcrums to move blocks that would challenge modern heavy equipment. The quarrying techniques developed by Andean monument builders demonstrate remarkable understanding of stone properties and fracture mechanics. At quarry sites throughout Peru, archaeologists have found evidence of controlled stone splitting using wooden wedges, water expansion, and thermal shock techniques that allowed precise control over how massive blocks would break. This knowledge enabled quarriers to create blocks of specific shapes and sizes needed for complex architectural designs. The organizational systems required for Andean monument construction were extraordinarily sophisticated. Building sites like Sacsayhuaman required coordinating the efforts of thousands of workers across multiple years or decades. This workforce had to be fed, housed, and organized while working at high altitudes in challenging environmental conditions. The administrative systems needed to manage such projects demonstrate governmental capabilities that rival those of modern nation-states. Archaeological evidence from Inca administrative sites reveals the sophistication of their project management systems. The Incas developed a complex record-keeping system using knotted strings, called quipus, that could encode numerical and possibly narrative information. These devices were used to track work assignments, resource allocation, and project progress across the vast Inca Empire. The precision achieved in Inca construction reflects not just technical skill, but sophisticated quality control systems that maintained exacting standards across hundreds of construction sites. Stonemasons working on Inca projects had to meet specifications so precise that blocks failing to fit properly were rejected and reworked. This level of quality control required supervisory systems and training programs that demonstrate remarkable organizational sophistication. The durability of Andean stone construction provides testament to the advanced material science knowledge of these ancient engineers. The builders understood how different types of stone would behave under various stresses and environmental conditions. They selected materials based on their structural properties and arranged them in patterns that would maximize stability and longevity. The influence of Andean construction techniques extended far beyond Peru. Similar precision stonework appears at sites throughout the Andes, from Ecuador to Chile, suggesting that these technologies spread across vast areas through trade and cultural exchange. The consistency of construction standards across this enormous region demonstrates communication and knowledge-sharing systems of remarkable efficiency. Recent research using advanced scanning and measurement technologies has revealed new dimensions of Andean engineering sophistication. Laser scanning of Inca walls has shown that the complex curves and angles of stone blocks follow mathematical relationships that optimize structural stability while minimizing material use. Computer modeling suggests that Inca builders understood principles of stress distribution and load-bearing that were formally developed in Western engineering until the modern era. The acoustic properties of Andean monuments reveal another aspect of sophisticated planning and engineering. Many ceremonial sites incorporate architectural features that enhance sound transmission and create impressive audio effects. These acoustic properties were unaccidental, but represent deliberate engineering, designed to enhance the ceremonial and religious functions of these monuments. The environmental challenges overcome by Andean monument builders demonstrate remarkable adaptability and problem-solving capabilities. Building at high altitudes in seismically active zones with extreme weather conditions required developing specialized techniques and technologies. The fact that these monuments have survived centuries of environmental stress testifies to the effectiveness of ancient Andean engineering solutions. Perhaps most significantly, Andean monument builders achieved their remarkable feats while working within sustainable resource management systems that allowed their civilizations to flourish for centuries. Sophisticated temple Unlike some ancient monument builders of Malta that may have collapsed due to resource depletion, Andean civilizations developed technologies, elaborate and social systems that could support large-scale construction, and one of history's most remarkable architectural long-term environmental stability within a few generations. The knowledge that had created some of humanity's oldest freestanding monuments vanished so completely that when new peoples arrived on the islands, they had no idea who had built the massive stone structures they found scattered across the landscape. This pattern of sudden disappearance haunts the archaeological record of ancient monument builders across the globe. Time and again, sophisticated civilizations capable of extraordinary architectural achievements flourished for centuries or millennia, only to vanish with startling abruptness. Their monuments remain, but the people, the knowledge, and the social systems that created them disappear so thoroughly that even memory of their existence is lost until modern archaeology resurrects their stories from stone and soil. The mystery of these disappearances becomes even more puzzling when we consider what these civilizations achieved before their collapse. The Maltese temple builders had developed advanced construction techniques, sophisticated astronomical knowledge, and complex social organizations that supported large-scale projects across multiple generations. They maintained trade networks spanning the Mediterranean and created artistic traditions that influenced cultures across the region. Yet all of this sophisticated development proved insufficient to prevent their complete disappearance. Climate change emerges as a common thread in many of these vanishings, but its role is more complex than simple environmental determinism. Around 2500 BCE, when the Maltese temple builders disappeared, the Mediterranean region was experiencing what climatologists called 4.2 kiloyear event, a period of increased aridity and climatic instability that affected civilizations from Egypt to India. Pollen records from Malta show a shift toward drier conditions that would have stressed agricultural systems and reduced the carrying capacity of the small islands. But climate change alone cannot explain these disappearances. Many civilizations have survived dramatic environmental shifts by adapting their technologies, economic systems, and social organizations. The monument builders seem to have been particularly vulnerable, perhaps because their elaborate construction projects created social and economic commitments that reduced their flexibility when faced with changing conditions. The very success of monument building cultures may have contributed to their vulnerability. The massive investments required for constructing temples, pyramids, and stone circles represented enormous commitments of resources that might have been needed for adaptation to changing circumstances. A society that had devoted generations to building massive monuments might find it difficult to redirect those resources when Environmental or social conditions demanded different priorities. Archaeological evidence suggests that some monument building cultures became locked into cycles of competitive construction that may have contributed to their downfall. At sites across Britain, the scale and elaboration of stone circles increased dramatically during the final centuries of megalithic construction, as if different groups were competing to build ever more impressive monuments. This escalating investment in monument construction may have depleted resources needed for other essential activities. The social systems that enabled large-scale monument construction may have also made these civilizations vulnerable to disruption. Coordinating the construction of massive monuments required hierarchical organizations with specialized roles and complex chains of command. While these systems were effective for organizing construction projects, they may have been too rigid to adapt when faced with changing conditions that demanded different approaches. Religious and ideological factors appear to have played crucial roles in many disappearances. Monument construction wasn't just a practical activity, but often served central roles in religious beliefs and social identity. When circumstances made monument construction impossible or impractical, the entire worldview that supported these civilizations might have collapsed rather than adapting to new realities. The case of Göbekli Tepe provides particularly intriguing insights into how monument-building cultures ended. Around 8000 BCE, after more than 1,500 years of use and elaboration, the massive stone circles were deliberately buried under tons of carefully placed fill. This wasn't abandonment or destruction, but intentional preservation, as if the builders wanted to protect their monuments even as they were ending their civilization's greatest achievement. Recent archaeological evidence suggests that the deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe coincided with the emergence of the world's first agricultural communities in the same region. Some researchers propose that the monument builders deliberately chose to end their traditional way of life and embrace agriculture, burying their temples as part of a conscious transition to a new form of civilization. This pattern of intentional preservation appears at other sites as well. Several Maltese temples show evidence of careful burial under protective layers of soil before being abandoned. Some megalithic sites in Britain were deliberately dismantled, with their stones reused in later construction projects rather than simply being left to decay. These actions suggest that the disappearance of monument building cultures wasn't always sudden catastrophe, but sometimes involved conscious decisions to end. Established traditions dot the demographic evidence for these disappearances reveals complex patterns that challenge simple explanations. DNA analysis of ancient populations in areas where monument building cultures vanish shows varying degrees of population continuity and replacement. In some cases, the original populations appear to have been displaced by incoming groups with different cultural traditions. In others, there's evidence of gradual cultural change rather than population replacement. Malta provides a particularly interesting case study in demographic change. DNA evidence suggests that the original temple builders weren't completely replaced, but may have intermarried with Bronze Age populations that brought new technologies and cultural practices. The resulting hybrid culture continued to occupy the islands, but abandoned the temple building traditions of their ancestors. The knowledge systems that enabled monument construction appear to have been particularly vulnerable to disruption. Unlike written traditions that can be preserved in texts, the technical knowledge needed for quarrying, transporting, and erecting massive stones was transmitted through apprenticeship systems that required continuity between generations of craftsmen. When these transmission systems were disrupted, whether by population decline, social upheaval, or cultural change, the knowledge could be lost within a single generation. Recent research has revealed that some knowledge from vanished monument builders may have survived in modified forms. Astronomical observations and mathematical principles developed by megalithic builders appear in later European cultures, suggesting that some information was preserved through oral traditions even after monument construction ended. Similarly, construction techniques developed by early pyramid builders influenced architectural traditions that persisted for thousands of years without the environmental legacy of vanished monument. Builders provides another perspective on their disappearance. Pollen analysis from areas around major monument sites often shows evidence of extensive deforestation and environmental degradation that may have contributed to civilization collapse. The massive timber requirements for construction projects, ramps, levers, rollers, and scaffolding may have stripped local environments of resources needed for long-term sustainability. Some monument building cultures appear to have recognized environmental limits and adapted their practices accordingly. The later pyramid builders in Egypt shifted towards smaller monuments and more efficient construction techniques that required fewer resources. However, cultures that failed to make such adaptations may have depleted their environments to the point where continued monument construction became impossible. The psychological and social impacts of ending monument construction may have been more devastating than we typically recognize. For cultures where large-scale construction projects served as sources of social identity, religious meaning, and economic organization, the inability to continue building may have triggered complete social collapse rather than adaptation to new circumstances. Modern parallels suggest how difficult such transitions might have been. Communities whose economies depend on large-scale construction projects often struggle when those projects end, even when alternative economic opportunities are available. For ancient cultures where monument building was integrated into every aspect of social life, such transitions may have been impossible to manage successfully. The story of vanished monument builders serves as both inspiration and warning for modern civilization. These ancient cultures achieved remarkable feats that continue to inspire us today, demonstrating human capabilities that transcend technological limitations. But their disappearances also remind us of the fragility of even the most impressive civilizations and importance of building adaptive capacity into our social and economic systems. Understanding how and why these remarkable cultures vanished remains one of archaeology's greatest challenges and most important tasks. Each new discovery adds pieces to the puzzle, revealing the complex interactions between environment, technology, society, and culture that determine whether civilizations flourish or disappear. Their monuments stand as testament to both human achievement and human vulnerability. Chapter 9. The mystery of synchronized monuments across vast distances and apparently insurmountable barriers of geography and culture. Something extraordinary was happening during humanity's early civilizations. From the stone circles of Britain to the pyramids of Egypt, from the megalithic temples of Malta to the earthwork complexes of North America, monument builders were creating structures that shared remarkable similarities in design, construction techniques, and even specific measurements. The synchronicity is so striking that it challenges our understanding of how prehistoric cultures could have developed such consistent architectural traditions across continents and millennia. The phenomenon becomes apparent when we examine the timeline of monumental construction across the ancient world. Between approximately 3,500 and 2000 BCE, a remarkably compressed period in archaeological terms, sophisticated monument building cultures emerged simultaneously across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These civilizations, supposedly isolated from each other by thousands of miles and lacking any means of long-distance communication, began creating massive stone structures that employed similar engineering principles and served comparable social functions. The mathematical relationships embedded in these monuments reveal perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this synchronicity. The megalithic yard, a unit of measurement equal to 2.72 feet, appears at stone circles across Britain and extends to sites in Brittany, suggesting shared measurement systems across hundreds of miles of supposedly disconnected cultures. Even more remarkably, this same measurement standard appears to have influenced monument construction in other parts of the world, raising questions about how such consistency could have emerged without direct contact between builders. The Great Pyramid of Giza incorporates the mathematical constant pi in its proportions, with the ratio of its perimeter to its height equaling pi to several decimal places. Similar mathematical relationships appear in other pyramid complexes across Egypt and in later pyramid traditions in Mesoamerica and other parts of the world. The probability of these mathematical relationships appearing independently across multiple cultures is so low that it suggests either shared knowledge systems or underlying principles that guided human monument construction across the globe. Astronomical alignments provide another dimension of remarkable synchronicity. Monument builders from Stonehenge to the pyramids of Teotihuacan incorporated precise celestial orientations into their structures, often aligning with the same astronomical events despite being separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. The winter solstice alignment appears in monuments from Newgrange in Ireland to Machu Picchu in Peru, suggesting that ancient peoples across the globe recognize common celestial markers for their monumental architecture. The precision of these alignments is particularly striking. The Najra Temple complex in Malta aligns with solstice and equinox sunrises to within minutes of arc, the same precision found in monuments across the ancient world. Achieving such accuracy requires not only sophisticated observational capabilities, but also mathematical knowledge for calculating angular relationships and construction techniques for implementing those calculations in stone. Construction techniques show similar patterns of synchronicity that challenge explanations based purely on independent development. The use of massive stone blocks fitted together with extraordinary precision appears in monuments from Easter Island to Sacsayhuaman, despite the vast distances separating these sites. The specific techniques used, precise stone cutting, complex transportation methods, and sophisticated lifting systems are so similar that they suggest either direct knowledge transfer or underlying engineering principles that emerge consistently across cultures. The phenomenon extends beyond construction techniques to architectural design principles. The use of sacred geometry, mathematical relationships that create pleasing proportions and structural stability appears in monuments worldwide. The golden ratio, various triangular relationships, and circular proportions appear consistently in structures created by cultures that supposedly had no contact with each other. These mathematical principles create both aesthetic beauty and structural integrity, suggesting that monument builders discovered universal relationships between mathematics, engineering, and human perception. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed the extent of this synchronicity in ways that continue to surprise researchers. Ground-penetrating radar surveys at Göbekli Tepe have shown that the site's monuments are arranged according to geometric principles that appear at other early sites across the world. Computer analysis of monument layouts reveals mathematical relationships that appear far too complex and consistent to have emerged purely by chance. The social implications of synchronized monument building are profound. Creating these structures required organizational capabilities that suggest similar social innovations across multiple cultures. The administrative systems, labor organization, and resource management techniques needed for large-scale construction appear to have developed along parallel lines in civilizations across the globe. This suggests either direct cultural contact or underlying human tendencies that lead to similar social solutions when faced with comparable challenges. Trade networks provide one possible explanation for some aspects of this synchronicity. Archaeological evidence reveals that prehistoric trade systems were far more extensive than previously recognized. Exotic materials from distant sources appear at monument sites across the world, suggesting that information and technologies may have traveled along the same routes as trade goods. However, the extent and precision of the similarities suggest that trade alone cannot account for all aspects of synchronized monument building. Genetic studies of ancient populations have revealed surprising patterns of migration and contact that may explain some synchronicities. DNA analysis shows that prehistoric peoples were far more mobile than traditionally assumed, with evidence of long-distance movements that could have carried architectural knowledge across vast distances. However, the timing and patterns of these movements don't always correspond with the emergence of synchronized monument building traditions. The role of environmental factors in creating synchronicity deserves particular attention. Climate changes that affected large regions simultaneously may have created similar challenges that led to comparable architectural solutions. The end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE, created environmental conditions that favored monument building across multiple regions, possibly leading to independent but parallel developments in monumental architecture. Astronomical phenomena visible across the globe provided common reference points that may have influenced monument builders worldwide. The precession of the equinoxes, solar and lunar cycles, and the movements of prominent stars were observable by all human cultures, potentially leading to similar architectural responses to shared celestial events. The fact that many monument alignments focus on the same astronomical events suggests that ancient peoples worldwide recognized common patterns in the sky. Cognitive factors may also contribute to synchronized monument building. Recent research in evolutionary psychology suggests that humans have innate tendencies towards certain mathematical relationships, spatial arrangements, and architectural forms. If these tendencies are universal aspects of human cognition, they might explain why monument builders across different cultures developed similar design principles without direct contact. The mystery deepens when we consider monuments that appear to reference each other across impossible distances. The layout of the Giza Pyramid complex appears to mirror star patterns that also influence monument arrangements in other parts of the world. Specific architectural elements at sites like Stonehenge have counterparts at locations thousands of miles away, suggesting either remarkable coincidence or knowledge transfer mechanisms that we don't yet understand. Recent discoveries continue to reveal new aspects of monument synchronicity. Underwater archaeology has uncovered submerged monuments that show similar design principles to known land-based sites, extending the phenomenon to previously unknown locations. Satellite imagery is revealing monument complexes in remote areas that share characteristics with better-known sites, suggesting that synchronized monument building was even more widespread than previously recognized. The technological implications of synchronized monuments challenge our understanding of prehistoric capabilities. The precision and consistency of these achievements suggest technological knowledge that was far more advanced and widespread than traditional archaeological models assume. This knowledge appears to have been maintained and transmitted across vast distances and extended periods, indicating communication and education systems of remarkable sophistication. Perhaps most intriguingly, some synchronized monuments appear to have been designed as parts of larger, coordinated systems. Computer modeling suggests that certain monument complexes may have functioned as components of regional or even continental networks designed to serve astronomical, religious, or administrative functions. If true, this would indicate planning and coordination capabilities that exceed anything previously attributed to prehistoric civilizations. The study of synchronized monuments continues to reveal new mysteries while solving others. Each discovery adds to our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities while raising new questions about how such remarkable coordination could have emerged across the ancient world. These monuments stand as testament to human achievement that transcends the limitations of technology, distance, and cultural barriers. Chapter 10: Legacy of the Stone Giants. Standing in the shadow of any ancient monument, whether it's the towering trilithons of Stonehenge, the precision-carved walls of Sacsayhuaman, or the mysterious T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe, you can't help but feel connected to something profound and eternal. These structures have outlasted empires, survived catastrophic events, and witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Yet they remain silent witnesses to human ambition and achievement that continues to inspire us, thousands of years after their builders returned to dust. The immediate legacy of ancient monument builders is visible in stone and earth across the globe. Their constructions represent humanity's first attempts to create permanent marks on the landscape. Structures designed not just for immediate utility, but to endure across generations. In doing so, these early architects established principles of monumental design that continue to influence architecture today. The emphasis on astronomical alignments, mathematical proportions, and symbolic meaning that characterizes ancient monuments can be traced through every major architectural tradition that followed. The engineering innovations developed by monument builders laid foundations for technological advancement that shaped human civilization. The transportation techniques pioneered to move massive stone blocks evolved into sophisticated logistics systems that enabled trade and commerce across vast distances. The precision measurement and surveying methods developed for monument construction became the basis for agricultural planning, urban design, and territorial organization that supported the growth of complex societies. Mathematical knowledge embedded in ancient monuments contributed to the development of formal mathematical systems that remain fundamental to human knowledge. The geometric principles evident in structures like the Great Pyramid or the stone circles of Britain represent early applications of mathematical concepts that wouldn't be formally described until classical Greek civilization. These ancient mathematicians working in stone created practical applications of complex relationships between numbers, shapes, and spatial relationships that influenced intellectual development for millennia. The organizational systems developed to coordinate massive construction projects created templates for complex administration that influenced governmental and economic systems throughout history. The hierarchical management structures, specialized labor divisions, and resource allocation methods pioneered by monument builders became models for organizing large-scale human activities in agriculture, warfare, and urban development. Modern project management principles can trace their origins back to the administrative innovations of ancient monument builders. Perhaps most significantly, ancient monuments established new relationships between human societies and their environments. For the first time in history, people were creating permanent alterations to the landscape that would outlast not just individual lives, but entire civilizations. This represented a fundamental shift in human consciousness, from accepting the world as it was to actively reshaping it according to human vision and ambition. The cultural impact of ancient monuments extended far beyond their immediate builders to influence artistic and spiritual traditions across the globe. The symbolic systems developed to decorate and organize these structures created visual languages that communicated complex ideas about cosmology, social organization, and religious beliefs. These symbolic traditions influenced art, literature, and spiritual practices in ways that continue to resonate in modern culture. The astronomical knowledge preserved in monument alignments, contributed to the development of calendrical systems, agricultural timing, and navigational techniques that supported the expansion of human civilization across the globe. Ancient monument builders were among history's first systematic observers of celestial phenomena, and their discoveries laid groundwork for scientific understanding that would eventually lead to our modern comprehension of the universe. The preservation of ancient monuments has created an unbroken connection between modern humanity and our earliest civilizations. Unlike written records that can be lost or misinterpreted, these stone structures provide direct physical evidence of prehistoric human capabilities and achievements. They serve as laboratories for archaeological research that continues to reveal new information about human development and social organization. Modern tourism centered on ancient monuments has become a significant economic and cultural phenomenon that brings millions of people into direct contact with prehistoric achievements. Visitors to sites like Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, or the pyramids of Giza experience visceral connections to ancient human achievement that inspire wonder, curiosity, and respect for human potential. This tourism creates economic incentives for preservation, while fostering global appreciation for cultural heritage. The influence of ancient monuments on modern architecture is both direct and subtle. Contemporary architects study the proportions, orientations, and spatial relationships of ancient structures to understand principles of design that create powerful emotional and aesthetic responses. Buildings from the Washington Monument to the Sydney Opera House show influences that can be traced back to ancient monument builders who first discovered how to create structures that move the human spirit. Educational institutions worldwide use ancient monuments as teaching tools that demonstrate principles of engineering, mathematics, astronomy, and social organization. These structures provide tangible examples of human achievement that make abstract concepts concrete and inspiring. Students who might struggle with mathematical formulas can understand geometric principles when they see them embodied in massive stone structures that have endured for millennia. Scientific research at ancient monument sites continues to drive technological innovation as researchers develop new methods for studying and preserving these structures. Ground-penetrating radar, 3D laser scanning, satellite imagery analysis, and other advanced technologies have been refined through applications to archaeological sites. These technological advances then find applications in other fields, creating a feedback loop where ancient monuments continue to stimulate modern innovation. The conservation challenges posed by ancient monuments have advanced our understanding of material science, environmental protection, and cultural preservation. Efforts to protect structures like the Sphinx from erosion or Stonehenge from tourist damage have led to innovations in conservation techniques that benefit cultural preservation efforts worldwide. These monuments have become testing grounds for methods that help preserve human heritage for future generations. International cooperation in monument preservation has created diplomatic and cultural connections that transcend political boundaries. UNESCO World Heritage designations bring together nations in collaborative efforts to protect shared human heritage. These cooperative efforts demonstrate how ancient monuments continue to serve as bridges between cultures and sources of common identity that unite humanity across national and ethnic divisions. The mystery and wonder surrounding ancient monuments continue to inspire creative expression in literature, film, music, and visual arts. From the countless novels and movies that use ancient monuments as settings to the musical compositions inspired by their grandeur, these structures remain sources of artistic inspiration that enrich human culture. They serve as symbols of human achievement and mystery that resonate across all forms of creative expression. Recent technological advances have revealed that ancient monuments contain far more information than previously recognized. Acoustic analysis has shown that many structures were designed with sophisticated sound engineering that enhanced their ceremonial functions. Computer modeling reveals mathematical relationships and construction techniques that demonstrate prehistoric knowledge systems of remarkable sophistication. Each new analytical tool applied to these monuments reveals additional layers of ancient wisdom and capability. The study of ancient monuments has also revealed their role as early scientific instruments. Many structures functioned as observatories, calendars, and measurement devices that enabled ancient peoples to track celestial cycles, predict seasonal changes, and maintain accurate timekeeping. These monuments represent humanity's earliest systematic efforts to understand and quantify natural phenomena, laying foundations for scientific methodology that continues to advance human knowledge. Climate change. Research has found ancient monuments to be valuable sources of information about prehistoric environmental conditions. The materials used in construction, the locations chosen for building, and even the reasons for abandonment provide data about ancient climates and environmental changes. This information helps scientists understand long-term climate patterns and the relationships between environmental change and human civilization. The social lessons embedded in ancient monuments remain relevant to modern society. These structures demonstrate what human communities can achieve when they work together toward common goals that transcend individual lifespans. They show the power of shared vision, coordinated effort, and long-term planning to create lasting achievements that benefit future generations. In an era of short-term thinking and individual focus, ancient monuments remind us of the potential for collective human achievement. Perhaps most importantly, ancient monuments serve as powerful reminders of human potential. They were built by people who faced greater technological limitations, shorter lifespans, and more challenging environmental conditions than we face today. Yet they accomplished feats that continue to amaze us and create structures that have outlasted every political system, religious tradition, and cultural movement that has emerged since their construction. The legacy of ancient monument builders challenges us to think beyond our immediate circumstances and consider what we might create that could inspire and educate people thousands of years in the future. Their achievements remind us that human creativity, determination, and cooperation can overcome seemingly impossible obstacles to create lasting contributions to human civilization as we face our own challenges: climate change, resource depletion, social inequality, and technological disruption. The example of ancient monument builders provides both inspiration and guidance. They show us that humans are capable of remarkable achievements when we work together toward common goals, think beyond immediate concerns, and dedicate ourselves to creating something larger than our individual lives. The stone giants left by our ancestors continue to watch over human civilization, silent reminders of what we have accomplished and what we might yet achieve. Their legacy lives not only in the monuments themselves, but in the human potential they represent, the capacity for vision, determination, and achievement that enables our species to create wonders that transcend the limitations of any single generation. As our journey through humanity's first monumental achievements draws to a close, we find ourselves transformed by the profound realization that our ancestors were far more capable, visionary, and sophisticated than we ever imagined. Standing in the shadows of Göbekli Tepe's ancient pillars, walking through Malta's prehistoric temples, or contemplating the precision of Egypt's pyramids, we're forced to confront a humbling truth. The people who built these wonders possessed the same intelligence, creativity, and determination that drives human achievement today. These monument builders didn't just move stones. They moved human civilization itself. They proved that people could think beyond their immediate needs and lifespans to create something permanent and meaningful. They demonstrated that human cooperation, could overcome seemingly impossible challenges when united by shared vision and purpose. They showed that careful observation, mathematical understanding, and engineering ingenuity could transform ambitious dreams into enduring reality. The story of ancient monuments is ultimately the story of human potential unleashed. Working with the most basic tools, these early architects achieved feats that continue to challenge modern engineering capabilities. They created structures that have outlasted empires, survived natural disasters, and inspired countless generations across 5 millennia. Their achievements remind us that the limits we often accept aren't limitations of human capability, but failures of imagination and commitment. Perhaps most remarkably, these ancient builders accomplished their greatest feats not despite their technological limitations, but because of their human strengths, cooperation, persistence, ingenuity, and unshakable belief that today's impossible could become tomorrow's reality. They teach us that the most sophisticated technology is often the human spirit focused on worthy goals as we face our own challenges in the 21st century. Climate change, resource scarcity, social inequality, and technological disruption. The example of ancient monument builders provides both inspiration and guidance. They remind us that humanity's greatest achievements have always required thinking beyond immediate concerns, working together toward common purposes, and maintaining faith in human potential, even when the obstacles seem insurmountable. The massive stones of Stonehenge, the precise chambers of the Great Pyramid, and the mysterious carvings of Göbekli Tepe stand as eternal testaments to what humans can accomplish when we dare to dream big and commit ourselves fully to making those dreams real. They call us to be worthy successors to their legacy, to build not just for today, but for the ages, creating monuments to human achievement that will inspire wonder and admiration long after we've returned to the dust from which these eternal stones arose. The first civilizations that built massive monuments didn't just change the landscape, they changed what it means to be human.